On one hand, it can create happy memories that you will never ever forget, but on the other hand, it can create dark and depressing memories that will haunt you for the rest of your life. Children's television is designed to entertain and make your child happy, but sometimes it can do an entire 180 and terrify you beyond compare. This list is inspired by a few of my favourite YouTubers who did the same thing, in which they listed stuff that scared them as a child. I decided to narrow it down to 5 things that scared me as a kid. And without further ado, I introduce you to this list. I absolutely adore Doctor Who. Well, I used to adore Doctor Who before it quite literally became something from another planet.
Emoji! It's been emoji!
I make a strong case to people that season 1 to 4 of Doctor Who is television perfection. The characters are well-rounded and likeable, never becoming too irritatingly clingy or annoyingly independent, and the relationship with the Doctor was unique in nearly every season. The enemies that the Doctor ran into were unique and had interesting abilities and traits, and the worlds that the show created made you invested in the show even more. Even the weakest Doctor Who episode had interesting monsters and story. I started watching the show when it first aired back in March 2005, with the first episode Rose, and from then on I watched Doctor Who every Saturday night without fail. However, one episode would give me more nightmares than I care to imagine, and would truly introduce me to Doctor Who's unofficial slogan of hiding behind the sofa. The Empty Child is the 9th episode of the first series. It became a tradition in the good parts of Doctor Who to make the 9th and 10th episode not only double-parter, but also the scariest. This episode kicked off that tradition. In the episode, the Doctor and Rose travel from 1941 London during the height of the Blitz. The Doctor and Rose are looking for a hospital ship carrying nanogenes. However, when the ship crashes in London, it kills a child wearing a gas mask. The nanogenes resurrect him as they found him, so the gas mask is fused with his body and becomes part of him, as the nanogenes have never seen a human before. So they think this is what humans look like. So they end up confusing real humans as impure and go around making everyone a gas mask zombie. The Doctor goes to the hospital where the gas mask zombie was first taken. There he finds a doctor who proceeds to tell him that every person in the hospital has the same injuries as the boy. The Doctor starts convulsing and crying out in pain, which leads to this.
Me. You, my mummy.
After I saw this, I'd never trusted Doctor Who again, because this was the first time I saw something that had the sole intention to scare someone. I mean, some of the things on this list were not intended to scare kids. This was genuine horror. What made the situation even worse was that I got so scared from the episode, I got off my mum's bed, ran downstairs and into the living room, only to find that my dad was watching the exact same episode on the telly. I re-watched the episode a few years later, and it's happened to become one of my favourite episodes of Doctor Who. I love the pacing of the episode. Everything has an unnerving atmosphere to it. And I also love the fact that they blend the real-life horror of the Blitz with the science fiction horror of the gas mask zombie. It also brings to mind stuff like Reagan from The Exorcist and Children of the Damned. Something so innocent as a child doing something so disturbing. Anyway, I look back on this episode and I am not embarrassed to say that I was scared of this scene. Most people who have religiously watched Doctor Who, like I did, have a certain episode that terrified them. This happened to be mine. There were moments through Doctor Who that would scare me, but not to the same extent of the gas mask zombie. The double party with the Slovene came really close, but this episode clinched it because the gas mask zombie was A, a human child who was about the same age as me when I watched it, and B, he didn't fart.
Excuse me, do you mind not farting while I'm saving the world?
This one might be a bit vague because I was such a small child when I saw it, but it nonetheless stuck with me. Teletubbies is an extremely weird TV show, but it's nonetheless entertaining. It's like a child's version of being on acid. It makes no sense, but you love the hallucinogenic attitude of it. However, one thing I hated about the Teletubbies was the cutaways to random interludes. Every episode there was a bit where the Teletubbies would crowd around the strange goings-on and would watch it. Watching it now, it distracts from the show, and they use that really creepy early 2000s CGI which looks god-awful. These never used to freak me out. However, what did freak me out was a cutaway involving a bear and a lion. This shit scared the bollocks off of me as a small infant, and judging by the YouTube video's dislike bar on the official Teletubbies channel, it scared the bollocks of a few other people as well. So I'm not alone on this one. What freaked me out was the uncanny valley of the bear and the lion. They both had human voices, but instead of having overly cutesy voices you would expect from a child's show involving animals, it had creepy and deep booming voices, and it honestly terrified me.
I am the scary lion with big scary teeth.
What didn't help was the fact that the bear would hop in and out of the map without hesitation. This part scared me the most because I would imagine the bear teleporting into my room and would sporadically hop around the room at night. Looking back on it as an 18-year-old man, it isn't scary, it's just a bit weird. I prefer this to normal kids shows that come out nowadays, when it's usually creepy CGI creatures telling children to not lie and be good. Whilst I was writing the script, I was talking to my mum about this, and apparently I was scared of 3 ships coming towards the camera, which happened in another cutaway from the show. If that's true, it doesn't make the list, as I can't remember being scared of it. If you ask someone between the ages of 16 and 21 in the UK about stuff they used to watch as a kid, quite often they will say stuff that didn't usually air when they were children. Quite often, parents will put on TV shows that they used to watch as children to show their kids. Children born in the new millennium could also watch old-timey shows on Nick Jr. Classic, a version of Nick Jr. that aired after 8 PM. It would show shows like Mr. Ben, The Clangers and Tom's Tank Engine, shows that have been passed down through generation to generation. Although I love these shows, and I love them dearly, my personal favourite was something called Trapdoor. This show follows the life of a blue blobby man called Burke, Boney, a talking cynical skull, and Drut, a fat spider that communicates by making fart noises. The show centres around a trapdoor, which can only be described as the doorway to hell. Once you open the door, all masses of creatures come pouring out. None of these monsters scared me, as I always thought the designs of the monsters really cool and interesting, with the exception of one. Season 1, episode 13, entitled The Pain, was the one episode that managed to freak me out. In the episode, Drut is bored and is looking for worms to eat. Drut then opens the trapdoor to find more worms. Unknowingly, he lets loose this thing. For the rest of the episode, it follows Drut running for his life from what I can only describe as a fat yellow piece of shit. The design of the monster I found really creepy. I guess the only reason I was scared of this thing was the same reason I was scared of the bear, the uncanny valley effect of that it didn't look human. The rest of the monsters had arms and legs, making the monsters seem more human, but this thing was just a slug. It had nothing human about it. I also got freaked out at the fact that it didn't care that it was in someone else's house and was only focused on eating. It got so bad that I used to put a pillow on my ladder when I went to bed because I was so scared at the fact that that thing would be watching me while I slept. I used to have nightmares about that thing slithering across my bedroom floor. Looking back on it, it is still a bit of a creepy design, but I'm looking through it through my eyes of my 9-year-old self. I still get freaked out by this creature, mainly because of the fact that I lost a lot of sleep because of it. Both this and my number 2 slot interfere with my sleeping routine. Now we move from unintentionally scary moments in the media to an intentionally scary movie. Nightmare on Elm Street is the scariest movie I've ever seen because, like most good horror movies, it taps into something that you are scared of personally. There are quite a few things that scare me, but one of the creepiest things I can imagine is being watched or killed while you sleep. So when I saw clips from Nightmare on Elm Street, they fucked me up beyond compare. I'm going to link Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 3 under the same category because they both involve Mr. Baloney Face over here. The first trauma I have is from the first movie. The scene that scared me the most was the famous scene in which Nancy, main protagonist, tells her boyfriend Johnny Depp not to fall asleep. Subsequently, he falls asleep. Where this happens. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is also a pretty good movie, definitely the best sequel of the Nightmare series. I consider this movie to have the scariest scene, but the trauma lasted shorter than the original movie scene did. In the film, it follows a group of kids who have mental problems. They start having nightmares about Freddy Krueger. One of the girls, called Jennifer, has the power to pull people into her dreams. In one scene, she is trapped in a room, where suddenly the wall and floor starts to break up, and then this pops out. These two scenes fucked me up as a kid. Like I said in my previous entry, both The Yellow Turd and Nightmare on Elm Street ruined my sleeping patterns. I started to put a pillow over my head and my eyes because I used to think it would give me some kind of protection against Krueger. And after watching Nightmare 3, I slept with my legs apart, so if he came out from the bottom of my bed, he couldn't swallow me whole. I recently rewatched both of these movies, and I have to say that the fear factor has somewhat dwindled after multiple viewings. They're still very well put together movies though. The first one you can admire for its great tension, a legitimately genius plot and a really scary villain, whereas the third one has a funnier villain and wackier deaths. I love the use of practical effects. It creates the illusion that these characters are actually interacting with the horror, instead of having everything in CGI like some movies do. This is still the scariest film I've ever seen because of the impact it had on me. No film has managed to terrify me as much as Nightmare on Elm Street. This may be the scariest movie I've ever seen, but it's by no means the scariest thing I've ever seen. As we move on to number 1. The common theme of the first 4 traumas is that I've managed to get over them over time. Number 1 is the exception. Nearly every person has a personal demon that triggers them into a state of fear. This thing scared me so much that I even remember the day I saw it, November 22nd, 2008. I was sat playing on the Lego in my lounge when my dad said to come over and watch something. He pointed out that this used to scare him as a kid, and this is what he showed us. This is a TV show called Armchair Thriller. It is a British horror thriller series that ran from 1978 to 1981 on ITV. Anyone who watched this or was alive during the time knows that this show gave many children nightmares. The show is your typical 70s thriller on a budget. However, it has a lot of traits from the 70s that make it extremely dated.
He's got no business in the force. You might as well have packies, you might as well have blacks.
This show still freaks me out. I'm 18 years old and I still have sleepless nights because of it. The initial viewing of Armchair Thriller was not scary, but my dad kept on watching it, which helped drill the fear of the show deeper and deeper into my subconscious. The day after I saw it, we went to a family meal and I was constantly on edge. I was shaking and unnerved throughout the entire dinner. For the next few weeks, me and my brother went through what I call bedtime hell. My brother was only 4 at the time, and I can remember for 4 nights straight he came downstairs crying his eyes out because of Armchair Thriller. Weirdly enough, the show itself never gave me any nightmares. However, unlike Trapdoor or Feel a Gasmaster Zombie, it stuck with me for years to come. I'd be having a perfectly normal day and then all of a sudden I'd think about it and my day would be ruined and I would have sleepless nights. To me, the shadow man on the clay chair is my own personal Jack the Ripper, the Slender Man or Demon. He has haunted my nightmares and my innermost dark thoughts since I was 8. I realised early on how long each trauma lasted, in terms of how long I was scared of it. I had a long think about how long it scared me, and I'm still terrified of it. Not to the same extent when I was 9, but it still makes me have sleepless nights. The music isn't as scary as I thought, the fella walking towards a chair clearly hasn't rehearsed so it looks shoddy, and that thing he does with the fingers is funny, along with the dated language and boring premises. But at the time, watching this intro is like seeing your own personal nightmare. The stupid thing is, I ended up getting Pavlovian conditioning. You see, before the intro came on, it would play the Thames Production Company logo. It had a distinct theme and look to it. As a child, I had no idea how production companies worked, so I automatically assumed that every time the Thames logo would play, Armchair Thriller would come on, which is a shame because both Rainbow and the critically acclaimed World at War documentary were both made and produced by Thames, so I got scared and turned them off. The short 30-second long clip changed my life. I wasn't the same after this. I became weary of things, and I never wanted to watch anything like that ever again. Which was hard because at the time my dad was very nostalgic and would watch adverts and TV intros from the 70s. Fear, like most human emotions, is based on a preference. What scares one person might not scare the other, and that's fine. I've showed this list to a number of people and they've all called me a massive wet fart because I was scared of stuff that they weren't scared of. But I can guarantee you I can find something that I'm not scared of that they'll find terrifying. This list is comprised of things that I personally find creepy, and I hope you really enjoyed this list, and I thank you for watching, and goodbye.